remind us if you were apart.
How does your identity impact the way you... Okay.
Different colors to go with my beard.
That's good. We could talk about that.
Another time.
Who are you, or how do you identify? I have a ton of trouble trying to boil down the core of who I am, and that is because I don't know myself anymore. Because my identity is so fractured in so many different ways that I've just lost track of the different pieces because they're all too small. I'm kind of divided in terms of my cultural identity my mom's like from Japan and my dad's American, and I also like grew up in two houses, so I was going back and forth. My education is really divided. I went to one really quirky private school that has like no homework, and then another like prep school that's so strict. Divided interests also between like humanities and like social sciences and natural sciences, and like having so many different components of my identity makes it really hard to keep track of what's important and like try and be able to say that I'm one way or another. The end.
That's great. I think when I interact with most people at SWAT, whenever the question comes up, where are you from? It's always a difficult question for me to answer. Given my accent, a lot of people just probably would imagine that I'm from the States. And I was born in the States, but I also spent the last 9 years of my childhood in India. And that greatly impacts the way I see my own identity. And it's always that sort of long answer, like, oh, I was born in the States, but I sort of grew up in India as well. And I just always have to give out that long explanation. It's not simple. And it's never been simple for me. And I feel like I've become a bit more integrated with my Indian heritage after coming back to the States. I definitely identify with my Indianness a bit more because now I'm not in the majority. So not so much that I feel more Indian, but it's just more apparent to me right now. And I always find that impacts the way I talk to people or I interact with them.
So I guess if I were a cartoon character, I would probably be very lanky, and you can't tell now, but I had a lot more hair previously. Mm-hmm. So I guess I would have a fro too. I'm always asked, like, a lot of things, first people ask me is, oh, do you play basketball, et cetera, you're so tall. And I'm like, I've heard that before a lot of times. Can you think of something more creative to ask me? But and because of that, I resisted playing basketball for a long time. Mm-hmm. But when I actually played it, I actually liked it. So it was a little bit like, it was like a begrudging sort of like, okay, I actually do like this thing. So I guess, I don't know. It was interesting to think about how the reaction that I get from people when they first look at me sort of influenced what exactly I actually wanted to do. Yeah. And I think in learning that I liked basketball, I was less hesitant to do things that I think people expected me to do and just worry about what I expect of myself.
Okay, cool. So the way I think about that question is the way I think about my name Frames and how I developed that name. And so Frames started out as a rap name I created for myself about 3 years ago. And it was really interesting looking at the way people took that when I expressed that, in the way some of my friends and people that were close to me kind of took it real seriously and then started addressing me as Frames all over the place, because it helped me to see myself as Frames more confidently and more wholly and completely. And I didn't lose Brandon, or I didn't lose like any other part of myself when I started to take on the name Frames more often, but it was more just an addition onto it was another part of my identity, and it's really important to me. And so that's the kind of the way I think about how we grow in the world, and how we grow to take on new identities, not always necessarily letting go of our old ones, but recognizing that things change and people change. And so now I actually go by both Brandon and Frames. I went as far as like I put Frames on my business card and everything like that. And it's like crazy because it's like 3 years ago, I never would have thought of doing something like that. Now it just feels like I feel like I'm missing something if I don't put that there. You know, not necessarily that that's the new me, but that's an essential part of who I've become now.
One thing I did when my kids were young is we'd always have dinner together, and we would go around the table and we'd say, tell me one really good thing that happened to you today and one not so good. What really was not so good in your day? And that creates discussion. I think I bring that to my sort of when I advise students who are maybe new to the school, and I ask them, how are things going? Tell me what's new. And I think that I use that when I advise students, and I try to make them as comfortable as possible. So I think I use my, not just family tradition, but sort of my motherly parenting style with my students all the time. And I always tell the students that I always wanted a big family, so now I even have a bigger family because I consider, my students part of my family. So and they learn about
a family tradition that I bring to SWAT is that I eat applesauce on pizza.
How the tradition originated?
I don't know. My grandpa taught my dad that, and it's just something that we've always done.
It's just something very random.
That's good.
Convince any other people to do it here?
Yeah, I've gotten people to try it. Mostly positive reviews. So you guys should try it. Everyone should try it.
We'll think about it.
Are you filming right now?
No.
Integrate my culture into my life at Swarthmore is to make food and to teach people how to make the food that I grew up making. And that is like one of the primary reasons why I helped start Eat. Because I find that it's very difficult to explain to people that like the tacos that I eat at home or like that I'm used to like eating are not the ones that they serve. I like to teach people how to make tortillas because you just add water to the flour and it's like easy. I actually taught my friend who was my roommate for 2 years, and she was able to make these tortillas when she was like living by herself during her internship. So it was really nice to know that like what I can teach other people actually like helps them like survive.
I think about Nabil, I think he's such a wordsmith and he's very lyrical. I really turn to him when I need someone to write something that's succinct yet beautiful.
Well, when I think about Pam, I think about the way in which she makes people feel at ease. I remember when I came for my interview, I was really stressed out. I was really anxious, and I came in the airport, and Pam came to pick me up, and I immediately was, it was a kind of ball of laughter, and there were like jokes.
Oh, that's so good.
I was like, wait, this is not what I expected a job interview to be like, and I feel that's continued. We have groups of students coming in, and Pam leads the sort of the research and instruction associates. We have our library interns, and the groups of students are immediately just sort of like put at ease in a way that doesn't happen on all parts of campus. So,
Hey, it's like Camelot here. I work with really great people, and I remember when we dropped you off at the airport and you waved goodbye, and Kate and I were in the car and we were like, we want to hire him.
that is so funny.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I take a picture? I don't know if you guys want to do separately or together. Or...
You should definitely be together.
Okay.